And welcome to our final health segment. Today we'll be discussing dyslexia, the causes, symptoms, and how it can be managed. Joining us on the show is a futuristic dyslexic thinker who is a dynamic public health practitioner, passionate about health promotion, disease prevention, healthcare, planning, and resource management. Welcome with us, Ronke Agoro. Welcome to the show, madam. Good to have you.
Good to be here.
So we usually discuss dyslexia so many times on this show, but just for those who don't even know what it is, let's start from the scratch. What does it mean and how is it detected?
Thank you. What does it mean? Dyslexia is, there's a standard definition for it, but I don't go by it because it says it's a disorder. I choose not to go by that because 1 out of 5 students are dyslexic. 1 out of 10 in the world are dyslexic. So that's a huge population. Yes. So when you say like a disease or something, you tend to think it's a small number. So that's why I don't conform to it. So in a general form, the way I like to describe it is that dyslexics have colorful minds or brains, unlike the conventional population where it's black and white. So they have a very colorful mind and they don't fit into a box. I'm dyslexic, so I don't fit into a box easily. So it's...
Describe a dyslexic mind.
Yes.
So how is it different to my...
Well, if you're not dyslexic... So I tend to tell the story. A dyslexic doesn't see things in black and white. You see them in arrays of colors. I didn't know that initially. In fact, I just found out that I was dyslexic maybe in the last 10 years or thereabouts. Okay. But going back so many years when I finished high school and all that, I say this proudly now, I took Jamb 6 times. Okay. So for me, but nobody knew. A classic dyslexic has an issue with A, B, C, D, E exams.
Okay.
I have a PhD. I would do 99 PhDs before I sit for Jamb, even at this age. Because I struggle, and it's a common phenomenon, they struggle with black and white. It's an array of gray. And it's not one size fits all. It's a spectrum, 1, 2. You don't see it as this way or that way. You see it in so many ways. So you're trying to confine them into a box to take an exam. And they will struggle because their brain is going at a high speed and it takes time for them to come down to answer that kind of question. But if it's to write...
So you're saying like multiple option questions are not...
It's not the best fit for them. If they know, you can teach them, like I got that training later when I was in college, how to answer questions and all that in that format. But in the default, it's difficult because you're busy looking A, B, C, D, but there's E, F, G, all the way to Z. You can find so many solutions. So they're problem solvers.
Their minds are...
All over, it goes at a high speed.
What we are told is that they read, if we write left to right, they read left to right, or they have some letters missing.
Yes, it's part of that. Like I said, it's a spectrum. You can mix words together. Like recently, it just happened to me. I was going somewhere. It was Water Corporation Drive, Lekki, and I thought I was going to Walter Carrington. Okay. So it's like your mind goes way before you, and if you have to calm down, and it takes age or time, maturity. Thank you, to calm down to understand that. Okay, let me read that again. And it happens to a lot of people.
So let's talk about how it was received. Your caregivers, your teachers. How did they put it in for you as a basic primary school student? Nobody. Did they confuse you and tell you you're abnormal? Or did they say, okay, how did they put it? How did you
figure it out?
How did you make it as a child?
Thank you. They didn't, nobody knew. Well, nobody knew in my time because I was smart outside the classroom. But when it came to doing schoolwork, I was like, I remember one particular class, I came 53rd out of 55. But it wasn't that I didn't know the material. Even for my Jamb exam, for taking Jamb 6 times, I was teaching my classmates. It wasn't like I didn't know the material. But putting it in the context the examiner was looking for, I couldn't do that.
Right, because of time, I want us to just go into the diagnosis, because there's a parent watching you right now, thinking, okay, how do I even identify this? You've given us a few tips for me, but how do I even manage my child who is dyslexic?
So coincidentally, two of my children are dyslexic. I didn't know, it didn't cross my mind, especially for my son. The best way is if your child is having difficulty with one or two things and they keep saying something in school that maybe he or she is mixing up words and all that, is to get them assessed.
Okay.
With an assessment, like I got my children assessed at Dyslexia Nigeria in Lekki. With an assessment, they get like a report that allows them to get extra time in exams. And I had those kind of tools when I was younger. I probably would have done better, but I'm fine with the way I am. But now with my daughter, she has more time, and confidence has been boosted because I've explained to her what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. If I don't tell you, you won't know.
Yes.
So number one, you got to know your child. Two, just because a child might be struggling in school, it's not definitive of what that child is. It's just yay much of the child's life. So you can't say, like they used to say once upon a time, Olodo or whatever. You can't use that because if you are asking a fish to climb a tree, that fish is not going to make it. So you need to take it out of the normal context that this child is good at something. Why is the child struggling? And the way they learn, like my daughter, she learns with audio, visual. So before I used to be there, but I learned that way as well. So you just have to, there's some things that you will notice, but you might not be able to identify it until maybe you get an assessment. With an assessment, you have more leverage and the child is better empowered.
Okay, so we have quite a number of children who are afraid of examinations. So you see them that they are intelligent, they would understand what you're saying, but when you put them in that confined and you give them those hours to write the exams, they are not able to make out anything meaningful.
Yes.
And sometimes, being teachers, you just assume that this person is. But thankfully, there are some schools now who go through a broader range of understanding the different intelligences children have, right? But as a parent who is struggling with other aspects of life, you have to sit still and learn this thing, and then the child is not able to. How does the parent, aside from getting the diagnosis, how does the parent even help at home? How does the parent support the child at home before even moving to the school?
So, like I said, it's a genetic configuration. It's not like you can dispose of it. It's a lifetime issue that you're going to deal with all throughout your life. For a parent, and as a parent, I know that I was able to see it better in my last child, only because I saw myself in her and I could tell. Normally, she's intelligent and smart and all that. So I looked at her and I was like, why aren't you paying attention in school? And then our teacher said a particular word that brought it all together for me. She said, oh, she's restless. And I smiled. So I asked her, I said, why are you restless? She said, but if it's to do things with her hands, she was good with it. And I'm like, so what do you do when you're in class? She says, I zone off. I said, to the future? She said, yes. I was like, God. So if it's not engaging mentally, she zones out, as in she's bored. So if you get her thinking and all that to solve problems, she's ignited. So every child has... Exactly. Every child has something that they're really strong about. It's a weakness, but it doesn't mean that child is dysfunctional. Not by a long shot. There are a lot of scientists that are dyslexic. Pierce Brunson is dyslexic. A lot of... what's this?
Creators and
inventors. That's where they find their...
So you're making these descriptions, and I'm wondering, isn't that how everybody thinks? Because that's how I think. I see in colors, definitely. My brain goes faster than my words. So you find that I'm struggling to match what is already gone off in my head before my mouth comes out, the words come out. I'm like, am I dyslexic?
A lot of people are, they don't know.
Yes, and so, because my initial understanding of it was that it's something that inhibits you from learning properly. So now you're saying to me that it is just another way of being a human being.
Yes, it is.
And so, if I didn't recognize it in myself as dyslexia, and with my child who's going through this, so what are the steps that I need to take, let's say like an average Nigerian, I don't know where to go, I don't have the resources, what can I do to help my child that I think has the similarities as I do in just helping, guide them through life?
Well, the good thing is that, the good news is that compared to 40 years ago, science has evolved. There are more tools and all that. The assessment I'm talking about, I didn't know about it. Well, my parents didn't at that age so many years ago. So knowledge is power. You keep finding out. Science isn't absolute, neither is knowledge. You have to keep trying to find out that this child, a lot of parents have come up to me and thanked me for letting them know how to help their children. And I'm like, because I I can't give you what your child is. The first rule, I believe, is know thyself and know thy child. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You have to be in tune with your child and ask the child how they learn. And then especially for exams, like I guess YEC, IGCSE and all that, you do need some sort of documentation. And even as they grow older, like professionals do it as well. Let's say you're to take some professional exam. If you have that assessment, they will give you extra time, because it is established. They will give you that extra
because
time.
they understand.
Many of us, had to face this issue of dyslexia when we watched that Indian movie. I can't remember the name right now. The one popular Indian movie. And sorry.
Was it ever?
I can't remember what it was, but it was a popular one that was my own first exposure to dyslexia, and I could say just like there's a spectrum. So in his case, in that kid's case, it was like the extreme where he wasn't just getting the numbers right, he was writing the letters upside down. Those are real end of the spectrum.
Yes.
And there's a parent in that situation where they don't even know where to start from, especially here where we don't have the resources. So are there places they can go? Are there places where they can seek help? When the spectrum is really high, it's not just about writing exam ABC, but it's about really not getting what the teacher is saying because you're at the level where you don't understand it.
Yes, I go back to the assessment because the assessment is about 4 or 5 hours. It tends to assess where the strength of the child is.
Okay.
That way you can tell them, this is how this child learns. This is what is weak. So you need to cater to the strength instead of looking at the weakness. So with that, exactly. So that's what we tend to focus on. This child is not good in mathematics. This child is not good in spelling. Well, it's important. I'm not saying it's not, but it's not the end of the world, especially now that we have scribes. There's so many pieces of technology that can actually help that child. And if you establish it with examination bodies, they will accommodate. So the child is being extreme. In our climate, it's challenging, I agree. But I believe without a doubt in my mind, it's first to assess that child so that you know how to help that child. Okay. Because reading things in a funny way or in a flipped way, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just that you have to understand how to flip it for that child.
Redirect it for that
I would like to go psychological now because we get this all the time. I have two completely different children. The young one A's all his exams, but he doesn't like to write. I don't like to write, so I'm thinking, how do you love your child despite the feedback? Because when the teachers call you, they don't have nice terms. Somebody paraded my son for writing slowly. Mommy, I'm the slowest writer in the world. I say, you're not.
Wow.
And
somebody planted that. So how do you love your child out of this feedback, whatever it is? Whose standards, determine? Because people don't know how far this goes.
It does.
To
affect
the child's life. How would you parade the child for
life?
When you parade a criminal? Are you telling me, and she was like, no, we shame them to writing fast. I said, you don't shame somebody to that, please. And don't ever. Because I remember my husband used to say I overreact, but he was the one overreacting this time around. So how do you love your children
Good question.
despite all the society's standards?
That's a very good question. I'll share an experience. I remember when my mom bought my Jamb forms, and after failing the 6th one, she was on her way to get in the 7th one. I was like, okay, Mommy, it's not a hobby. And all that good stuff. But my daughter, when a teacher, actually my son, my first, when a teacher said, oh, he doesn't spell very well, he can't read letters. So I asked the teacher, I said, what do you mean he doesn't read? What doesn't he read? He can't read 3-letter words or 4-letter words or 5-letter. What can't he read? And she couldn't tell me. So I told her, I said, look, Obama, I'm more educated than he is, but he speaks and writes better than me. You're comparing to what can't he read? And she couldn't define it. So what I've learned over the course of the last 20 years is that Out of default or design, people throw out words carelessly.
Yeah.
It's up to you as a parent to say, that's not my child. Like I said, every child is intelligent in their own sphere. It just might not plug into what we call the norm. So you have to explain that to your child non-stop. It's it's just like being a parent. There's no closing time. You have to say it all the time that you're unique and different. So because you have to boost their confidence up and let them own it. Right now, my daughters would tell you from the corner, I'm dyslexic. Yeah, because she knows that with that, you can't fit her into it.
Thank you very much for
Thank
joining us on the show. Appreciate it. I mean, we like this show because people come to learn.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up because some people have to be commercial.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to wrap up. But I would love to bring you back so you can teach us more on this. That's all we can take. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.